Justine Eltakchi is an ARIA-nominated Australian songwriter turned artist whose debut album, Big Dream Baby, is a deeply moving, exhilarating collection of songs that are mostly not country music, but because there is at least one country song on there, I'm taking it as license to talk to her about it on Sunburnt Country Music because it's phenomenal and I really want to know more about it. Hello, Justine.
Hello, thank you for having me.
It's great to meet you, and I will get into the album, but I want to set the scene for you as a songwriter because, as the intro says, songwriter turned artist. And you've been a songwriter for Eurovision Australia, for The Voice, and you've written for Casey Donovan and Ivana, amongst other artists. When did you write your first song?
I wrote my first song when I think I was 14, and I knew like two chords on guitar. And I was like, okay, it's
Do
go time.
you remember what the chords were?
It was literally like G and E minor.
Very respectable chords for first
Thank
time chords.
you.
Had you been sort of itching to make something, write something, so that once you had these chords, you're like, I have all this stuff I need to get out.
Yeah, it was weird. Okay, first of all, I fell in love with John Mayer. He was sort of like where I was like, oh my God, I want to write songs. But I actually was learning violin for a few
Oh,
years.
okay.
And then
Very
I
good.
was like, I really wanted to sing. And so I just ended up quitting violin. And I come from a musical family. My brother plays guitar, my other brother plays piano, my dad plays guitar. And so I was just like, I'd kind of picked up little things here and there, and then I just started looking up tabs on the internet, and then I was like, oh, learning chords, teaching myself chords, and then I don't know, and then it just sprouted from there. But I think it was really like I I really wanted to like have a mirror somewhere where I could see myself, and I feel like
Mhm.
songwriting really became that.
Ah, that's interesting. So Amira, as in, because obviously when you're a teenager, any of us as teenagers, we are sorting out who we are, what we like, who we want to be, and all those sorts of things. Thinking it's final, the stakes are always huge. So in writing the songs, do you think that you actually found that mirror?
Yeah, I think it was kind of like I always think of it like there's a stencil of who we are. And for me, like writing music was like filling in the stencil with colors. And I think it was that I didn't have a strong sense of like who I was, or, I was just classic, like bullied a shitload in school. And like, I just didn't feel that sense of who I was. And I think discovering songwriting was like my resource to
Mhm.
become who I could be.
So did you start performing around that same time, or I mean, I know you've been songwriting a lot and not necessarily performing your own songs, but was there some performance going on at that
Oh
age?
yeah, yeah. So a couple of years later, I used to record. This is how old I am. I used to record into those like stick microphones attached to a shitty computer, and I remember I was listening back to something that I'd recorded, and my dad walked past, and he's like, "Is that you?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And so then the next week, he'd literally booked me a gig at the Blue Tongue Lizard in the Blue Mountains, and he packs all the PA onto the ute and then like drives me down the street, and we pack out this little cafe, and it was such a cute little cafe, and we pack it out, and like all of his cousins come and everyone tips me $50 each, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is the dream. That was my first experience of a gig.
Well, yes, the $50 tips would be unreal. When your dad said, "Okay, well, I booked you a gig," did you feel nervous more than excited, or excited more than nervous?
I think excited more than nervous. I'd done like kind of dancing, and then I'd also done music in school and like choir and stuff, like the church choir at school. So I'd kind of had like the thrill of performing.
Right.
And so the idea of performing by myself, I was like, yeah, this is that just really excited me to be seen, and again, like it's that idea of like a mirror. It's like I
Hmm.
got to be somebody. I love that concept as a teen.
Look, fair enough too. Was there, given that you are from a musical family, was there any suggestion by your father that there might perhaps be a family band?
To be fully transparent, I there was a time in my life where I was in a band with my dad and six of his relatives, and we used to do Lebanese functions together. And my dad was the singer, I was the singer, another cousin was a singer, and we would do like Lebanese association balls and like events.
Six other, so that's a band of eight. That's a lot of people to organize.
Yeah. It was a great time.
But I suppose, yeah, that's cutting your teeth in a particular environment, right? That's an environment where people are, yes, happy for you to be there, but probably talking a lot and not necessarily paying attention and demanding that you play songs that you may not know.
Yeah, and I was really young. Like, I didn't have, I would say, like, I didn't have the vocal technique yet to really sing within an eight-piece band, but I just did anyway. And then, you just pick it up pretty quickly, or you adapt pretty quickly. And yeah, but I definitely, at the beginning, I was like, I didn't know exactly how to project. Whereas now, funnily enough, if you listen to my voice now, it's like I have a very strong voice.
Yeah, you do have an extraordinary voice, actually. It's a beautiful voice. The tone is phenomenal and you have a lot of range too. So when I was reading about you being a songwriter turned artist, I was thinking, well, surely she has been singing for a very long time. So now I found out that you have.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She's been everywhere.
But what was that path then to write songs for other people in the way you have? So, as I said, Eurovision, The Voice, and for artists. So you obviously were performing, you're singing, you're writing songs for yourself. There was a point at which those songs found their way to other people.
Yeah, I it was really I didn't mean for it to happen. I can't even remember how it happened, but there was a small label in Sydney forever ago, like 15 years ago, and they were like, "Oh, do you want to just come in and write with the artists?" And I don't even know how I knew these people. It was so this is how bad my memory is. And so I started writing with a few of their artists that they'd brought in, and that sort of kicked off this idea that I could write for other people. And like I loved the social aspect of that, and I also loved the chance to like help somebody bring their idea to life. Like that was like such a nice like space to connect with people. So that sort of kicked it off, and then I just began like it sort of snowballed back then. Like then someone would hear that you were writing with that person, and then so it all just became like this network. And then I met a guy called Joseph Delahoyd, and the strangest thing is that we met at an event on Oxford Street in Sydney, and we began writing together. He's a producer, and we began writing together and bringing in artists. And then 2 years into working together, so I'm from Newcastle and the Blue Mountains. Joe is from Kenthurst, which is like northwest Sydney. And 2 years into us writing together, he messages me one night and he says, "Is your dad John Eltakchi?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "My mum grew up with your dad a street away from each other in Granville in Western Sydney." Like,
That's
what are the chances? What are the chances of that? And
well
I
clear.
just thought that was so bizarre because me and Joe have always had a really strong connection creatively, and we've always just really understood each other. And it's so bizarre. It's like we found each other in the most random place, and we started writing together and have written so many cool songs together. And our parents grew up together.
Well, I mean, depending on which, theories of universe and time and things you believe in, it's like you were riding the same slipstreams and eventually you were going to be in them together.
Yeah, so weird. Weird.
So how many I suppose you've lost count of how many songs you've written by now. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I've got like 60 cuts in the in the world like
Mm.
released, but like god, I've written I don't know. I don't know how many hundreds of songs.
So when you're writing for other artists, is it a question of trying to channel not just what their voice is going to sound like singing the song, but also what's important to them and what stories they're going to tell?
Yes, it's definitely about like to me that being in a room with an artist is it's very spiritual in a way. It's like you have to connect with them and what's they're not saying. And it's like it's very much like therapy. And you're both sitting there and you're deciphering like what they're not saying or what they really mean when they're saying something or what they really want when they're using words. And it's
Mhm.
like it's kind of like a puzzle that you're like trying to piece together. And yeah, it's like a really nice like honor to work with artists in that way.
Yeah, I love that what you just said about what they're not saying, because that ability to actually draw that out is it's not just spiritual, it is spiritual, but it's intuitive. It has to come from a place of really wanting to understand another person and also practicing active listening, I think.
Totally. Totally. And it's like you definitely hone that skill. Like in the beginning, I guess everyone would do this, you know, you're too dominant or you're not dominant enough or like yeah, you're taking over it too much, or you're not contributing enough. Like there's so many, and then it's like you're doing the dance, and then you find the flow, and like that's always the magic with artists that work together. And like for example, Ivana, who she's a house Australian house artist, but like me and her definitely have that. Like we've written a few songs together now, and we've only had a few sessions, and whenever we have a session, the song is cut, like the song gets released. And it's
Okay.
like because there's something that you can't even like explain, or it's not tangible, but like we have that connection with each other.
So when it comes to writing for yourself, are you conscious that there are things that either you're not admitting to yourself or you don't even know about yourself that may come out in that writing process?
Yeah, like definitely. Yes, writing for myself is a different thing. It's like for me, and I heard an artist say this recently, and I can't remember the artist's name, but he said, writing music isn't writing a song, it's remembering a song. And when he said that, I was like, oh my God. Like that's literally what it is. Like when you write a song that like is special, that you feel, because even this album, like I literally sat at the piano and cried as I wrote all of those songs. And
Right.
it's like that isn't just a formula. Like that isn't just like what are people gonna like? What's like commercial? What's gonna land in the market? How can I sculpt a song? Like I didn't think of any of those songs in that way
Mhm.
because I just didn't. I was so over trying to be formulaic in songwriting because of collaboration so much, like collaborating so much. I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. Like if I'm not like telling the truth, if it is not the truth, then why am I writing music?
Yeah.
And that's sort of like the premise of this album was me going like, I don't want to write music anymore unless it's like literally the truth.
Well, it's also that process of being brave enough to delve into yourself and actually be prepared to be completely bare to yourself and to the world because obviously you knew writing those songs, you were crying writing them, that that meant there was a whole lot of you that was going to be transmitted to the world. And I do think at a certain point that's a decision for an artist. Okay, I've written these songs. Yes, I'm pleased with this process. Now I have to reckon with the fact that other people are going to hear them.
Yeah, I think I was never ready to be seen properly.
Hmm.
Like to be fully honest, like in the industry, in the past I've released songs here and there, but I just don't think I was ready to be like fully seen for just like who I am as I am, like whatever form that is. I think that it would bring up a lot of like shame within myself. Like I wasn't comfortable with who I was yet. And
Hmm.
I think this album, like, it's so just like it's so just true and just who I am I'm so over trying to be someone else that like I just am like, okay, whatever. Like if no one listens to it, whatever. Like as long as I am happy with the album, then
Yeah.
like that's all I can do in this life, That's all we can do really.
Yeah. And I think it is really hard to be seen in an age when we are seen all the time, when we all have cameras that we can carry around and we put stuff on social media, and it's as an artist, that's part of the job and it's demanded of you. I still think it is really hard to be seen as a woman in culture as well, when there are so many different comments going on. And then also because you said you cried writing these songs, I cried listening to them because it is your heart there, right? And
Thank
it's
you.
and that is a very precious thing to offer other people.
Thank you. Yeah, I think like when you're saying it's hard to be seen as a woman, like I think definitely, and I think that with me, I have always struggled to find and feel like I belong anywhere because like when you come from a mixed migrant background, you're already like a mix of cultures and then like but you're Australian, like you're born here, but then you're like I identify with these parts of it, but I don't identify with those parts. And like for me, like growing up, moving, I suppose that influenced it. Just I don't know. Like I always looked. I grew up in really Anglo areas, and I was like we were the only Middle Eastern family. And yeah, I was tall and I have like big features and I'm loud and like, I was definitely attracted, just
Mm.
people that are rubbed the wrong way or whatever. Like, so I guess trying to figure out where I like who I am, and like I guess where I've landed is like realizing I'm all of those things. Like I'm not just one thing, and it's like
Mm.
you can all these things can coexist within who you are.
Yeah. Well, and even the fact that you said you grew up in Newcastle and Blue Mountains. Now, for people who aren't from the Sydney area, that's different. That's a really different experience. Newcastle is a beachside, a surfside town. It's originally a steel city. The Blue Mountains are stunning. They're beautiful. It's very much not anything to do with the ocean. And there are different ways of thinking and different ways of
So
living that
different.
attach to those.
So different, yeah. And the Blue Mountains, it's really nice because the Blue Mountains does attract really creative people. And there was such a, I'm not sure if it's there anymore, but growing up, we had the Winter Magic Festival, which is a huge music cultural festival, and we had like really good live music venues, and there were just a lot of creative people who would move up there to just write music, and it's cool because a few of the tracks on the album were written in Katoomba because Emma Greenhill produced a few of the songs, and she was living in Katoomba at the time. So it was so nice to get the train up and just be like, oh, going back home, and I get to do that beautiful train trip and
Yeah.
write and produce these songs that are me, that sound like the mountains. Like it was really cool.
So, after you've written a song, are you a songwriter who tends to edit your work? So, do you go back and forth on it, or do you trust what comes out pretty much fully formed?
Um, Usually when I get into like the headspace of like wanting to finish a song, I get into this weird zone where like I'm writing it and then like I'll go away and I'm doing something else and I'm thinking about it, and then like I'll go back and listen to it and I'm like, oh, that should be changed. But it's not like a super drawn out process. I think because I've been writing so much collaboratively for so long, it's like my ability to Tetris a song and make all the pieces fit
Mhm.
became a lot faster than it used to be.
Yeah.
So like I could just became really obvious to me, oh no, that line needs to be different. Or that line needs to be there instead of there.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So yeah, I mean, they feel the songs are different musical styles, and it feels to me like you have chosen the style that suits the song rather than saying, oh, I want this sort of style of music. But also it feels cohesive. So even in the way you've put the order together, I'm wondering if that was like an intuitive process or you were actually that you Tetrised it.
Oh my God, the order of the album was under much debate for so long because I was like, I really wanted it to start with the first song, Start Again, because it's literally about my grandma leaving Europe in the middle of the night during the war and like never returning. And that was the beginning of like my family's story in Australia. And I really wanted it to start with it, but I was like, is this weird because it's sort of this like string ballad? I'm like, are people going to think that I've written like a ballad album? And I just was like going back and forward. Should I start the album with it? But it's so important that it starts with that song because that song paints the picture.
Yeah.
And so I just ends up going like, oh fuck it, whatever. Like just I'm gonna put that as the first song.
Well, the title of the song has in brackets Nanny's memoirs.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so we all immediately get that sense that it's a very personal story. And you end the album with this beautiful song, Josephine, Maruba Crescent, which is so evocative of place and time. So we've talked about the mountains and sea, and but, there are Laura Keats mentioned on there. There's so much. Yeah, you really do put us in a scene there.
Oh, that's so cool. Thank you. Yeah, that last song is about my grandma, and I wanted the two songs to book it to be like a bookend, of her. Because in her memoirs she talks about how difficult it was leaving Europe, and when her parents like came here, that because of the PTSD, my great grandma ended up like in an institution, and my great grandpa was abusive, and like my grandma was by herself, and so that was like really hard for her to start here already from a different country. And she in her memoirs she actually talks about how when she met my grandpa, he was this big Italian family, and she said like I finally found somewhere that was like loving and happy. And
Right.
so that song is about them finding each other, and
Mhm.
they ended up having 7 kids and moving to Stroud, which is like rural New South Wales, and then they moved to Nelson Bay and they spent like the rest of their life in Nelson Bay. And so I wanted to like end the album with that because it was the start and the end. My grandma passed away a year and a half ago.
Oh,
So
that's recent.
yeah, so that when that happened, that Josephine's actually the song I wrote as I was grieving her. Like that
Right.
was the song. So I definitely wanted those songs to be like the start and the end of the album.
Yeah, and I think also what you said about your grandparents migrating to Australia after the war, and it's the effects of that are also recent. I mean, we can think, oh, it's so many decades ago, but in the sweep of human history, that's not many generations because I've had grandparents who lived through those sorts of experiences as well, albeit in Australia. And so I think part of what I love about that is you you kind of indicating to us that time is actually immaterial. The experience is always present, and it's your experience as well because you're in that family with her. You love her.
Totally. And you see the effects, and it's funnily enough, my grandpa actually said to my mum one a while ago, I think everything that we went through during the war, we've somehow passed it on to you kids because there's a lot of in our family there's a lot of like mental health struggles. And
Hmm.
there's a lot of stuff that's sort of like inexplicable, like,
Hmm.
chronic health or whatever it might be. But yeah, there's definitely, I just think there's this intergenerational links between all of us.
Yeah.
And I feel like yeah, I definitely feel all of that. And that's why it's so like therapeutic to write about it and so
Hmm.
important, I think, to like, to grieve it
Mm.
and experience it and like look back and take the lessons. Yeah,
Well, and also to be the storyteller in your family, to take those stories and actually do something with them so that not just your family members can perhaps understand them and themselves better, but so that you can offer it to other people so it can help them in their experience.
totally. Exactly. And that was sort of where that came from as well. Like I think there's in Australia there's so many untold stories,
Hmm.
and there's this, like, my experience I'm sure is just so common. Like there's so, being so multicultural here, I'm sure that it's so common, and it's like we're all just like here trying to figure out who the hell we are and what
Yeah.
it is to be Australian.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that that is definitely in the album as well, just in ways as you evoke place and experiences. But there's, Frangipani is another beautiful song, and that's evocative of summer. And then there is a song, 6 Weeks of Summer, which you'd released as a single. So we have this feeling of yeah, I think East Coast Australian life, at least for me
Yeah.
as a lifelong Sydney sider, I related to that.
Yeah, thank you picked up all of it. Exactly. Yeah, 6 weeks of summer is about like a teenage love affair during school holidays, obviously, 6 weeks 6 weeks of summer.
Yeah.
And that was set in like, yeah, in Port Stephens, and so was Frangipani. And Frangipani is about living with someone who like gets depressed and what it's like to live and wishing that you could fix it and you can't.
Hmm. Yeah, it's you sing all of these songs so beautifully. I really encourage people who are listening to this or watching it to please go and listen to this album multiple times because it will reward you. Now, the album is called Big Dream Baby, and that is the title song as well. I'm wondering if for you, music has been the big dream.
Oh my God. Yes, like it's, what they say, it's like the a blessing and a curse.
Mhm.
Like, oh my God, I wish I wanted to be an accountant or a lawyer or something. And it's just, yeah, yeah. It's definitely, it takes a hold of you. Um yeah, it's weird. And I think like my dreams within music has like morphed over time. And when I first started out, I actually remember I was 15, and I remember seeing Joss Stone on TV, and it was when Joss Stone like blew up. And I remember thinking, oh my God, if Joss Stone is famous and she's 16, then like I can be 16 and famous. And like I am 36 now, and I'm still going, like, and I guess my dreams have changed, like I don't want fame for
Mhm.
fame. Like I don't want that. It's like I just want I want my music to be heard. Like I think that's the big thing. It's like I want my music to be heard. Like I want to feel, I guess, connected and understood with other
Yeah.
people. And that there's
Yeah.
like a mutual understanding in this life. I think that's probably why musicians make music.
Well, and I think you go a long way towards doing that with these songs. And another song that you released as a single was Daughters and Sons. Now, when it was a single, it was you alone singing. On the album, The phenomenal Casey Donovan is singing with you. I'm wondering why you decided to re-record it with her.
I just obviously the solo version is so simple, and that was like one take, the vocal.
Right.
And when we did it, we were just like, oh yeah, like this is it. And actually, the guitar was one take, and we're like, oh yeah, okay, that's it. Felix Lelaine was on guitar, and we were just like, yeah, that's it. That's the track. And Guy Kurd's on cello, and yeah, I loved it. I loved it solo, but I just knew like it could be something else. It
Mhm.
could be like it could be more. And it just happened. Like it felt. I just had this idea. I was like Casey Donovan. So I messaged her and I was like, "Do you want to do my song? Do you want to record my song and we release it as a duet?" And like she said yes. I was like, "Okay, cool."
You,
Wild.
you're both such strong singers, but your voices are very different, so it does really work as a duet. And there's another duet on the album, which is "If I Could" with Tim James Bowen, which is the one that skews a little bit country.
Yeah.
And again, voices very distinct, but working beautifully together. Had you collaborated with him before? Is that how you came to choose him?
We just been on the same gigs a couple of times together, and like he- I just loved him. Like he's got this energy that when you're with him, he just it's like he makes you come alive again. Like I always have this sense, and my memory of like when I hang out with Tim is that I feel very alive.
Right.
And so I wanted to work with him. And again, I just like asked him, I was like, would you want to sing on my song? And he said yes, and I was like, okay, that's amazing. And I didn't really know what it would sound like as a duet, but it was like so much, it was just like amazing. Like his voice is so, like, yeah, just so provocative and like honest and just beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, they work very well together. So as I said earlier, different musical styles on the album, and I'm wondering if for you as a singer, there is a style or genre of music you prefer or you feel like is naturally your home.
I know the album is so strangely diverse. Like it's got, 80s pop and then neo soul and then ballads and then country and then folk. And I'm like, what is the category of this album? Which I think it's landed very clearly in adult contemporary because
Well,
it's very
the
much
category is you, Justine. I think that's what it is.
I've made a new genre.
Yeah.
It's very anyway. Um so like I think yeah, it's so cliche to say like I have an eclectic taste in music, but I definitely do. Like I love songwriters, as in like Carole King, like
Mhm.
Stevie Wonder, Billy Joel, John Mayer, Alicia Keys, John Legend. I love India Ari, Tori Amos. Like I love people who just tell a story really well. But I also love really soulful music, and like a big influence from my cousins growing up was 90s R&B. And so I
Right.
actually love R&B so much. But I guess when I was like, just landing back in playing guitar and piano and just sitting there like writing songs, it's like whatever I am just comes out. And I
Mhm.
suppose again, like it's like I'm not one thing, so it's like this album is just such a hodgepodge of like of genres. But yeah. I hope it
I
makes sense to people.
I dispute that it's a hodgepodge because I actually do think they all work together. But it's interesting you mentioned Billy Joel because I used to listen to him so often and then I didn't for a long time and then I went back to it and I was listening to something the other day thinking, oh, he really just got this whole elaborate worlds in songs, all
Yeah.
these characters and things going on and
Exactly. Exactly. And I like that because definitely sometimes I'll write and it's like I'm a character in my head and and then it takes me away. It's like, yeah, it's really strange.
Now you have an album launch show coming up in Sydney at Lazy Bones Lounge in Marrickville on the 30th of April. And I think I saw Caitlin Shadbolt's going to be your support act.
Yes, she is. I've
Wonderful
written
country
with
artist.
Caitlin. Like we wrote together years ago. Loved working with her, and she's a ball of energy, amazing. And I haven't seen her in like 5 years, six more, 6 years. And yeah, so I just said to her, "Do you want to be my support act?" And she said yes. So it's going to be great. I'm really excited for that. And Tim's going to be on stage. She's going to come up on stage. We'll do the duet. And Charmaine Ford, who is an incredible piano player, she is a teacher at the Conservatorium of Music. She's like a jazz award, she's traveled the world playing jazz music, and she played the first Start Again, the first song on the album. She played piano for that song and also for Frangipani. And so I was like, "Do you want to come up on stage for Start Again?" Because it's such a special. That song to me is so like intimate and special, and I really wanted to share that with her. So I'm excited for her to come up on stage.
Now, I'm wondering if, because you have guitars behind you, anyone who's listening, not watching, can't see these guitars. Now, over Justine's shoulder, there is an amazing looking guitar that looks like it's got like purple crystals on it or
Flowers.
something. So I'm thinking, is that guitar going to be there?
No, that's from the Pedals music video, and I zhuzhed it. I got all these like holographic flowers, and I stuck
Right.
it all over the guitar, and it was such a fun. Like I love crafts. It's like this is amazing.
Well, that's interesting. What crafts do you like?
Like painting, sewing,
Right.
knitting. I love all that boring old people stuff. It's great.
Well, except I do remember years ago, the African American writer Alice Walker wrote a book called In Search of Our Mother's Gardens, and she made the point that things that are usually named crafts are actually women's art forms. It's like sewing and knitting. So we think they're called crafts because they're seen as lesser than art forms, but they are art.
Oh my God, I love that's so true. I've never thought of it like that.
Yeah, so
Oh
they're not old
wow.
people's activities. They are art forms that you are adding to your musical art form.
Totally. I'll
Yeah.
take it.
Well, I won't be seeing the flowers on that guitar when I come to see your launch show on the 30th of April, but I will be looking forward to seeing you playing these songs live, and I'm sure they will have a different form there as well.
Yeah, we're having a stripped back element for a lot of the songs where I've got a cellist, a
Mhm.
guitarist, and a pianist, and me. So some of the songs are going to be fully stripped back, intimate, really nice.
Well, I can't wait to see that live, but I also love this album, which I've had the privilege of listening to ahead of release. So, those of you who are listening to it at the end of April when it's released, do enjoy it. You will never recover in the best possible way.
Thank you so much. That's so nice. Thank you.
Justin, it's been great to talk to you. Thanks for your time.
So nice to speak with you. Thank you so much.